Santana, before we get into the other stuff, some silly money going to receivers. Christian Kirk gets paid, and no 1,000-yard receiving seasons for him. So how many plays can you come back for, and are you ready to come back?
I wish I had something left in my tank, honestly. You know, I'm not mad at some of these guys. I mean, I'm not mad at anybody who's getting their money, but it just make you wonder, like, man, I was before my time, you know, because I remember I had to be very productive to go out there and get $6 million a year. And I mean, when I say productive, put up some 1,000-yard seasons just to get $6 million. And now you're seeing guys, you know, getting 10 million, 10 plus million without having those kind of seasons. And the elite guys are going out there getting more than 20 million a year. So it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal for these guys who's out there in this league today. I hope the guys that's not getting those contracts right now can see their way to that. You know what I mean? Go out there and put the work in, and then, you know, they should be granted the same thing. But it's ridiculous, but at the same time, I'm happy for those guys.
What's it like to cash a check that big?
Well, hopefully they're not cashing them. Honestly, man, you know, I look back at a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to finances. You know, I'm glad the world is where it's at right now, where it's a lot of, you know, influencers on social media that's teaching these guys, you know, a little bit more about their money. Because, you know, I was so caught up in the era where I didn't want to lose it. So I sought out someone that I felt that had my best interest and just made sure that he knew what to do with it. I made sure I stuffed it into my account or wherever, you know, I was instructed. But I never really got a chance to know it how I know it now, you know. And I think, you know, that's life. You live and you learn, right? You know, so but I remember when I was getting those checks, I used to look at them and be like, wow, you know what I mean? And that's what you want. You basically, you know, prepare yourself your whole life to try to have those days, have a day where you can take care of your family and you can be straight for the rest of your life. And that's what some of these guys are in, you know, right now with that kind of money. I mean, one salary, 1 year can have these guys straight for the rest of their lives if they know how to put the money up. You know, when I was young, we didn't have, you know, that kind of money in that 1 year. But if we had better instructions, we would be able to do a lot of other things differently. I'm happy to say that I was bitten a couple of times and learned my lesson and was able to rebound and be able to do some things differently. So I'm glad I was able to obtain, you know, a pretty substantial amount and be able to still have some of that, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And listen, it's a hard thing because everybody always says, well, if I had that kind of money, I would never lose it. And I'm guessing that if most people had that kind of money, they're going to be thinking, hey, this money's going to be here next year and the year after too.
Yeah, see, what people fail to realize, you know, and I tell my friends this a lot. You know, one of my closest friends, he sees it, and he was able to see it one day. He was up there at the training facility with me. I was getting treatment in off season. I had just had my third knee surgery. They was cleaning out my meniscus that year. It was like 2010-ish, I believe. That was when Shanahan just got there. And I had one of my buddies in town, and he wasn't a guy that was into the football world like my other buddy. My other buddy had played in the league a couple of years, played in Canada, so he knew how the money was. This friend's a younger guy. He didn't know how the money looked. He didn't know how bonuses, none of that stuff. So I was getting a bonus that off season, and I remember laying on the table, and I was the guy I always wanted to check my money. So I got someone came in there with the envelope, and I couldn't look at it because I was getting my scar tissue kind of broken up in my leg, and I asked him to look at the check and make sure it was all there. And he saw $2 million and almost fainted. And he's like, bro, you got $2 million. And I'm like, no, that's short. I'm supposed to have more than that, but taxes. So a lot of folks don't realize the taxes part. And so they hear all these numbers. Oh man, they got 80-something million. Well, if you look at 37% of that 80-something million, it's going to be a lot, you know, lesser, right. You know what I mean? But it's still going to be good money. So it's all good when it all comes down to it. It's all good when it all comes down to it, but you know, a lot of folks who hear the numbers, they don't understand that taxes play a big part in that too.
Well, agents as well. And the other thing, when Antoine Randall was there in Washington, I remember talking to him about, like, you know, money, just how hard it is to get used to the money. Because again, most people, you know, I don't know how many people can handle that kind of cash. But the one thing he said is when he was a rookie, and he got paid, he's like, oh, this is great. He took all that money, went and bought this and that, did this and that with the money. And then taxes came around the next year. and he didn't have the money left. And
Yeah.
it was a shock to the system right away in that first year, because it is a hard thing to get used to.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's, that's similar to what happened to me. It wasn't the same way. It was that my first year, out the gate, I realized taxes was a motherfucker, and excuse my French, but I'm getting ready to go to training camps in New York. They flew out to sign, so I can sign before training camp, so I can be there on time. They flew to Miami. I signed the contract. I remember my agent telling me I signed for 5.3 or 5.5 or 5.3, one of those. It was somewhere around that area. That's what I was signing for. After I put my signature down, I got a check for 3.2. And I'm like, what is this? This is short. And they were like, oh, we already took the taxes out. And that was my introduction into, the real world, or
Right.
when it comes to, knowing what it was like to have that kind of money coming in, that Uncle Sam going to get us out the gate. So here I am being naive, don't know much about, okay, I paid taxes, I'm good. I didn't know now every check that I get during that season is going to be taxed also. And at the end of the year, not only are they going to take the taxes out when I'm getting paid, but they're going to come back around and say, now I have to pay the taxes, from those checks I received. And I'm like, man, I remember my dad called me. I was in the off season, and trust me, that season was already one of those horror seasons. To this day, when I think about my first year in the NFL, I want to forget about it at times. But I'm finally in the off season. I'm finally healthy. I feel a little better about myself. And then my dad tell me, y'all owe $400,000 to the IRS, and I'm like, how? They just took $2 million from me, and and some more, and so. But the thing he said to me, well, look on the bright side. At least you made enough to be able to pay that much. And I was like, that's not the bright side to me,
And I guess as a dad, I'd probably say that to my son too, because otherwise you get very frustrated with the size of the bill. But so yeah, but it's you earn the money, so that's a nice thing. You guys earn that money, and so
exactly.
that's why
definitely
I've never begrudged a pro athlete what they can get, because especially football. You're not a big guy. You're going across the middle and putting yourself in harm's way many times a game. Whatever you get, you've earned. And so,
definitely.
The prices go up, the TV money goes up, you guys get your share. So, but it is it must be really weird and cool to make that, because it's just, so, but anyways, let's get to the current team. I want to start with Terry McLaurin, because he's a receiver, since we started off that. And how do you think that some of these contracts with the receivers will impact his thinking as far as getting an extension? What would be your approach? Because there's other guys in that class, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, who also have to sign. What would be your strategy if you're Terry, as far as when you would want to sign, and how much would you be looking at these other deals?
Well, I think Terry probably a little more on his stuff than I was at that age when it comes to, probably even being smart enough to even, try to tap into knowing what what's my worth. I was a guy that I just wanted to play. I want to do the part on the field. Me and my agent had a pact, Drew Rosenhaus, and he said, hey, you take care of what you got to do on the field, and I'm going to take care of what I had to do in these meeting rooms when it comes to, going and getting top dollar for you. So to me, I felt like as long as I put the numbers up, whatever that market is for me, I'm going to be able to have that. And that's what I did. I cared less about the next man. As long as it sounded good enough for me, and you can put me up there with the guys who I basically, play better than, or have the same potential numbers, or the numbers was around the same, then I was okay with it. I'm pretty easy when it comes to that. Just don't cheat me. I'm one of those guys. Like, look, give me what I'm worth. And that's what I did. I think when it comes down to Terry, he's probably going to take that same approach about just going out and playing, and letting his agents deal with that. But I think when it's time to come sit down, we just spoke of a guy named Christian Kirk, kind of set the bar for a lot of guys who probably outplayed him already. He's a year ahead of those guys, I believe. Terry, and Terry has already have better numbers. So, I look at that and I'm like, man, we in a tough spot as a team, because you thinking about long term with a guy like that. You don't want to lose a guy like Terry. So you saying to yourself, like, wow. So we got to go already on the limb and say, he's probably potentially going to probably be getting a 100 mil, you know, and any other guy who's had those numbers, who's in the same era when it's going to become looking for a contract next year or even coming into this season. So, but I think Terry will be smart about it and say, hey, you know, as long as I keep doing what I'm doing on the field, it's going to take care of itself.
How much can Carson Wentz help him?
Carson Wentz can help him a lot. You know, one of the things about Carson, if you look at it, man, and people fail to realize, regardless of how sorry or some of the things that people want to say about him, you know, when it comes to his play the last few years, he's beaten a lot of teams in our division, you know, playing the way he played, you know, especially 2 years ago when he probably had his worst season. When you look at the whole scale of all his seasons together, he's been consistent. That's something that you rarely get, even with injuries. He's being consistent. His numbers are almost identical. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was talking to Logan the other day before we went on air over at the facility, and Logan said something that stood out to me. He said, Tanner, if we had Carson last year, you know, we win 3 more games, and those 3 more games make us that much better of a team. So I don't think the fans get into all that stuff and really look at the big picture of things like that. I look at it because I understand the value of a quarterback, period. Don't get me wrong. You can't not appreciate what Heineke did for us. I mean, that was amazing for him to come in to be able to carry the load and shoulder the load and go out there and put those games together. But I think collectively as a team, we just fell short. Our defense should have played better. You know, they caught us, you know, spur here and there where they started playing better, and then it went back downhill when it came to COVID and some injuries here and there. I think Carson comes in, some of the things that we do offensively when things break down, he can do that. Right. I think one of the things that we probably going to harp on the most when it comes to him is just, look, stick with the first decision. If it's not there, check down and get rid of the football. You can't sit in there and try to play hero ball. And, you know, when you saw Heineke do that, you almost said, no, don't do it, because you knew he can't throw that ball in that second and third one because arm strength. Now, when you got a guy like Carson Wentz, he can throw that ball anytime he wants because he has that twerk on that ball. He can throw that ball up and down the field with ease. So, you know, where do we scale things back from him at and saying, you know, what we're going to allow and not allow? I think out the gate, you got to let him know, look, we want you to see the play. If it's there, if it's not there, you'll check down or get rid of the football. Or tuck the ball, run, you know, do something with it. But don't sit back there and take on guys when the protection is not there, or when you've been back there long enough and the protection has not broke down.
How can he help for the receivers? And when, you know, because he does have a bigger arm, and as you, like we just said, and I think everybody knows that. So those second and third level throws, when you have that threat for a receiver, when you have a quarterback who has the threat and the ability to consistently make those throws, how does that open up routes in the pass game for you?
It's a couple of things that come to mind. He can dissect guys. He can see the defense, you know, have his protection change. He can do all that at the line of scrimmage. And then he's going to make these guys know that regardless of what you feel, how he's been playing, we have to protect, you know, our back end. Because if we get caught slipping, we too far up, we have the guys on the outside that can blaze and run behind you. One of the things that Terry haven't got a chance to really do well or show more is his deep ball ability. To me, I feel like he's one of the best in this game also with that, but he hasn't been that guy for us because we've been so in tune to just get him the ball right now, you know, and we haven't had a quarterback that can really allow Terry to go downfield and just do his thing, show his 4.2, 4.3 speed and go get a ball or two. So you have Carson now that has the arm. So I think a lot of teams are going to come into the game knowing that he could beat us deep. So we have to protect that back end and not try to get caught up. And now that's going to open up those intermediate routes and those unders and those short routes. And I think that just make us better right there all around. Now you're going to have a chance to see the other guys flourish just because the quarterback himself can beat you. Not worrying about that Terry or whoever we have at tight end or whoever our running back is in the backfield. Defenses are going to want to start saying, now, if we don't get to him with our pressure, he can beat us with his arm, regardless.
Hey, everybody, it's John Keim. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, and I'll continue to bring you guests who provide excellent insight into the Washington Commanders. And while you're here, check out the other terrific content on the Ampire Media Network, including Inside the Cap with Joel Corey and All's Caps with Steve Wino and former Washington Capital Carl Alsner. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Thank you.